Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Evan Crean. My pronouns are he, him. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, co-author of Your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living, and co-host of the It's the Pictures podcast.
My name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I'm co-host of the Slashers podcast. I too am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and a member of Gallica, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics.
And my name is Dave Riddle. My pronouns are he, him. I write about movies. And I'm also a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. I kind of mumbled that, sorry.
We're all good.
Yeah.
I was going to have a lot of fanfare, like woo, 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 woo. And then you were like, I mumbled it. Sorry.
I know. Trying to inject
canceled.
something new into the intros here.
Trying to keep it spicy and lively.
Yep. Gotta keep it fresh.
So fresh and so clean.
Yeah. Gotta be fresh. Yes, we have movies to talk about as always, but before we get to those movies, we want to mention that over on our Patreon this week, we are talking about the horror film from last year, The Front Room, starring Brandy. And we have a lot of stuff to say about that movie. Boy, I tell you what.
Sure do.
Pretty spicy in the bonus episode. So if you're a patron, definitely check that out. And if you're not, you should consider joining. What an episode to join for.
Oh, man, yeah.
For $5 a month, you get access to weekly bonus episodes. And you also get to vote in monthly polls. And speaking of which, we're going to have one coming up. So definitely look out for that one. And while we're on the topic, I'd like to say thank you to our sponsor, Peace Patron, Heather Sachs. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Appreciate your support. And as I mentioned, we have 3 movies we're talking about this week. We are going to be talking about Wolfman. We're going to be talking about Night Call and Back in Action. And we are going to start with Wolfman, which Megan saw. And I'll just give the one-sentence IMDb summary, as we all love to hear. It's written and directed by Lee Wannell and co-written by Corbett Tuck. Stars Julia Garner, Christopher Abbott. And IMDb says, a family at a remote farmhouse is attacked by an unseen animal. But as the night stretches on, the father begins to transform into something unrecognizable. Well, Megan, how bad is that summary?
That's actually accurate because parts of it are taken directly from the press release. So that is, it's like a very condensed version, but yes, that is actually accurate.
All right. Golf clap for IMDb today. Polite applause. So tell us about Wolfman.
Okay. So before we even get to that, as far as like where that official synopsis is, the movie starts 20 years ago. Oh God, is it 20 years? No, it's 30 years ago. I can't do math. It's 30 years ago in 1995. And the movie opens there's text on screen talking about how there was a hiker in the woods in Oregon and they went missing, and the indigenous peoples of that area had a name for it, and it translates to the look of the wolf or something like the face of the wolf.
I see.
And so then we open and the protagonist is Blake, this boy, and he's going on a trip with his father. But before he even goes to the trip, you can see how like scared he is because you hear the father's like booming voice, kind of like he's in the military, like calling him to action. And he's like making like really cut corners on his bed, like making his bed. And so they go out into the woods and they go hiking and they have rifles. And so they're out there to hike and to hunt. And his father is like a real dick. Like he steps away for like a second and to try to get this deer that the father saw that ran away from the father. And then he like screams at him and he's like, I told you to stay right next to me. And this is a dangerous place and you could get hurt and I need you to be safe. And like, so I don't know. The father might be coming from a good place, but he's going about it like a fucking asshole. So the kid the kid is scared shitless. And they see like in the sight of the scope of the gun, you see like this man-esque creature. And you see it later, or you hear it actually, because they go up into the deer hideout, like up on in the tree, and
Right, yeah. The nest or whatever it is.
And so, and you see like the wood clanging, and you hear the breathing, and you see the breath of this creature who can climb, and it has like clearly sharp claws because you see the claw marks afterwards. Anyway, it's this humanoid animal creature. And then we fast forward to 30 years later in the present, and now it's Christopher Abbott who is Blake, and he's living in New York City, and he's a stay-at-home dad because he's between jobs, and he's got a really tight relationship with his daughter who's like, I don't know, 8 or 10. I'm terrible with kids' ages. And they have a really sweet rapport, but she doesn't listen to him in this one moment where she's like walking on the edge of like a construction site. Like they have like a thing on the side of the road, and he's like, get off that. And she doesn't like listen. And so he grabs her and he's like, you've got to listen to me. I don't want you getting hurt. And he like scares her accidentally. So you're clearly seeing like echoes of his father. Yeah. Exactly. And then he immediately apologizes. He's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. That was terrible. I shouldn't have reacted that way. I was so scared. So you see like he's doing something different than what his father did with him. And then he's married to Julia Garner, and she's a full-time writer, and she comes in on the phone, and she's having a work meeting. And so she's clearly work all the time. And they are not getting along in their marriage. So, and then he gets a letter saying that his father has been officially declared dead because his father went missing. And so he's like, I haven't been back in all this time. I haven't talked to my father, but, he left me this house and I want to go see it. And it's really beautiful. And we should have a getaway. We need to reconnect. And she's like, I don't know. I don't want to take time off from work. And he's like, no, we need to do this. So she's like, okay, fine, I'll do it. So the three of them go, and they rent this big truck because I guess they're going to take like furniture and belongings out. So it's kind of like, it's not a U-Haul truck, but it's kind of like the size of a U-Haul truck. And they go, and then he gets lost on the way there. And they run into a guy that he used to know as a kid. And like Julia Garner is like, don't let him in the van. Because the guy's like, oh, I can show you where he's like, you're at my house, not your old house. And so he gets in the van, and then things go awry because this creature is in the woods again. And Christopher Abbott as Blake almost hits this creature that's standing in the road. And then they drive off the road and end up in between a couple of trees. It is a bonkers scene. It's great. And then they're stuck.
Chaotic.
It's very chaotic. This part's very chaotic. And they're stuck in the tree. And he's telling the daughter, you got to climb because they're sideways. He's like, you got to climb out the window and get on the top. And she's like, I'm scared. And he's like, you got to do it. And then so she does it. And then Julia Garner, whose name is Charlotte in the movie, she climbs out next to her. And then Blake gets out, and it's a really tense scene. I think it's probably the best scene in the movie. And then they get back to the house. Oh, and I forgot, the guy who was in the car, he opened the car door and fell out, and then something takes him and takes his body away. And so they make it back to the house, and they're being chased by something or someone.
Is it the dad?
Spoiler alert, it is the dad.
Wolf dad.
It's Wolf dad. But meanwhile, Blake has been bitten and on like the arm, and it gets really infected like really quickly. Like it's like all puffed up and like bleeding. And so Julie Garner's like bandaging it up, and she's like, basically like, what the hell is happening? This is nuts. And yeah, so the whole movie is, or most of the movie is set in this one night where they're trapped in the house, but also sometimes outside of the house because they're being chased by Wolf Dad, which you don't actually know until almost the end of the movie, but like,
right. Yeah, I mean, come on.
Evan figured it out in 30 seconds.
Exactly. You said he was missing. I'm like, okay, come on. He's running around
obvious.
the woods. Yeah.
Yes, it's so obvious, but there were actually gasps from the screening I was in, and I was like, really? Come on.
Oh man,
So,
people just.
I know. I was
they're
like,
so disappointing.
I'd like to think maybe they were so enamored and enthralled they weren't thinking clearly.
Weren't
I
paying
don't know.
attention to the stuff yet.
Yeah, but it was pretty obvious. It's very obvious. So as the bite is after the bite, and they're trapped in the house, and then they're outside of the house because they try to get to the car, but the truck that was his dad's, and Julie Garner's trying to jumpstart it with cables from the garage. Anyway, it's like a whole thing. There's like a whole bunch of these like little things. They're not really so little because they're trying to get away.
Right.
And the whole time his like arm is getting worse and it's bleeding and it's oozing. And the movie kind of goes into body horror territory where like a nail of his comes off and hair is falling out on his head and teeth are falling out. And it's really disgusting and really gory. And his body is undergoing this transformation because he's becoming a wolf man too.
Mm-hmm.
And also he can't talk. And Julia Garner's really confused because she's like, why aren't you talking? And like he can kind of sort of write, and he writes that he's dying. And the movie flashes in between her not being able to hear him because he's not talking, and he can't understand his daughter and his wife because when they talk, it's almost like it's like wah 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 wah, and
Classic
he has
Peanuts.
right, and he has like heightened vision where colors are heightened and their eyes are glowing, and he hears a spider crawling in another room, but it sounds like someone like pounding on the walls. So anyway, he's undergoing this transformation. They're scared shitless because they're like, what the hell? And then not only do they have to worry about the Wolfman outside, but he's becoming the Wolfman. So they got to worry about him too. So it's like, it's like ping ponging back and forth. And yeah, it's a lot of running around. So that's basically what's happening. And and then like have to make the decision, like Julie Garner has to make the decision, do I kill him or not? Like ultimately at the end. And so this movie starts off really good. It starts off really tense. It's a really tense, slow burn. The performances are good. It's a great cast. And I liked that. And this is a really potentially interesting allegory, dealing with toxic masculinity, dealing with intergenerational trauma. Like he doesn't want to be like his dad and pass down those, kind of emotionally abusive tendencies. Unfortunately, though, they really squander that, and it just is way too on the nose. The fact that you figured it out like immediately, Evan, and it's not tricky. It's not like when you're watching this movie, it's like, oh no, if you were watching it, you'd think it's, complex. Like, no, it's very obvious. It's not subtle at all. And it just ultimately ends up feeling very repetitive. And I feel like if you're going to have, and I know Leigh Whannell said he wanted to go in a different direction with the prosthetics and the makeup of the wolf transformation because he didn't want to retread territory from like Rick Baker and what an American Werewolf in London did. And so he wanted to go in a different direction, more realistic. But to me, the makeup and transformation just looked terrible, like awful, just not good at all. And so I feel like there's something here because there's so many interesting movies about werewolves and like puberty and like repressing desire and like with like Ginger Snaps and the original Wolfman. But this could have been really cool, but it just ultimately feels kind of meh, sadly. So
that's a
there's
bummer.
So there's some good stuff here, but ultimately it just felt very, very underwhelming to me and just too repetitive and just lacking in subtlety. So it's unfortunate.
What happens to the Wolfman?
What happens to him? Oh, he gets shot and dies.
What about his dad?
He also dies.
Oh.
Okay.
So Son Wolfman rips out his father's throat when his father breaks into the house.
Like you do.
Oh, and then at another point too, before he's gone fully Wolfman, the wound on his arm, he's like scratching it like frenetically and then starts chewing on his arm. That was kind of a fun, gross moment.
Yeah.
And so then at the end, when he's like chasing his wife and daughter, he's like staring at them and Julie Garner has the gun pointed and the daughter's like, Mom, he wants to be put out of his misery. And so then she kills him. And then they walk away from the house and they go to this valley that he had told them about before, this like beautiful valley that was like his favorite spot as a kid. So that's how it ends.
Gotcha.
Eh.
It's a bummer. It's funny though.
Yeah.
I was getting the sense from you that it was really good at the beginning based on how you were
It
describing
was.
the car crash.
Yes.
And then the more you described the plot, the more it did start to sound like it was kind of like repetitive situations and kind of just.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
just
know.
like they're running around the house. Okay, now we're going to run up these stairs. Okay, now we're going to run to this. Now we're going to run outside. Like, yeah, it just.
Oh, that didn't work. Run back inside. Okay,
right,
I'm gonna try this.
exactly.
Okay, no, go back inside.
right. And I'm just like, oh, this could have been so good. And it did. It started off really, really strong. So I think that's even more frustrating in a way. But yeah. Oh, well.
Womp
Oh, well.
womp.
Yeah.
All right. Well, womp womp. Sad times for Wolfman and Wolf Dad and Wolf Son. Shall we move on to our next movie?
Sure.
Okay. So we're going to talk about Night Call, written and directed by Michael Blanchard, and it's co-written by Gil Marchand, Laurent Brandenburger. I'm pronouncing this Frenchly since the movie
Brandenburger.
is in French.
Something like that.
It's a Belgian film, right? Or it takes
Yes.
place in
It takes place
Brussels?
in Belgium, yeah.
Yeah, and let's see. We'll do the IMDb summary here. This is an action thriller. This night is like all other nights for Maddie, student by day, locksmith by night. But Claire, the enigmatic young girl he helps out that night, is not who she claims to be. Maddie only has one night to prove his innocence in a city in turmoil. Yeah, to leave some stuff out, but
Well, yeah, it's jumping from who she claims to be. Maddie only has one night to prove his innocence. Well, what the fuck happened? Did she like shoot someone? Did she, fucking
right.
pour sugar in his gas tank? What?
Yeah. So he's a locksmith. He's a student. He's also in Brussels, and there's anti-police protests going on. Black Lives Matter protests that are going on. The city's in turmoil, so that part of the plot summary is accurate. And he gets this call from this girl Claire to unlock the door, and she's very sketchy when he gets there. Like, oh, I can't show you my ID. That's in there. Oh, I can't pay you any money right now. That's in the apartment. And when he asks her, can you describe the apartment? She just says, oh, there's a punching bag in there. So she like runs in quickly and then comes out with like a trash bag and is like, I gotta go to the store, get you money. Okay, bye. And he's waiting around. And then she calls him and is like, you should probably get out of there. And he's like, what? And unfortunately, it's too late. And the Nazi who lives there has just come home.
Literal
And
Nazi.
He comes home and immediately starts beating the shit out of him, trying to kill him. So in a fight for his life, he takes one of his screwdrivers and stabs him in the neck and kills him.
As you do.
Yeah, as
Well,
you do.
he couldn't see where he was stabbing, and I think he was just
mean-
trying to stab anywhere.
Right.
He puts up a really good fight too. Like at first, like
Mhm.
the guy has him kind of he's hitting him against like the sink or something like that, and he grabs a dish and stabs him in the side with it.
It's a good
Yep.
stab.
Yeah. And so then he's killed a guy and wondering what the fuck do I do? I think also his phone got smashed in the fight, so he can't use that. And let's see, he thinks about calling the cops, then he sees all the protests on TV and thinks better of it. So then he goes back up to start cleaning up the crime scene, and then two henchmen for the mob boss show up looking for the Nazi, find him dead, find the money's gone. He tries to escape, they nab him, they take him back to the mob boss, who basically says to him like, I don't think I believe your story about this girl coming and tricking you. But one of the henchmen, Theo, says, I believe him. I think it's probably true. So he says to him, okay, you've got one night basically to prove that you didn't do this and get my money back. Otherwise, you're history. And if you do get my money back and you do help me out, like I'll be your best friend and I'll make all this go away and I'll get rid of the dead Nazi and all will be good.
He basically does say, I'll be your best friend and it'll go
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, he
That's
does.
what's really funny.
Yeah, he says something like, like, I can be your best friend or your worst enemy, and like you can make that decision as to who you want. So he sends Theo and this other henchman out with Maddie, and they're just kind of like looking around places to try and, find a lead. The first place they go is a brothel, and then while he's there, he overhears Theo on the phone with Claire. I'm putting her name in air quotes. I think her actual name is like Julie. And you find out that Theo and Julie robbed, the Nazi, and are gonna skip town, and they're gonna leave him holding the bag, literally. And so so he hears that, and then he gets like locked in the bathroom there, and he manages to escape, and he grabs Theo's phone, and so he's basically trying to clear his name, and he lures Julie to like a nightclub basement and gets into a scuffle with her there, and then like he ties her up and she shit talks him and he hits her with a hammer, and then they decide like, okay, maybe we're not gonna be terrible to each other. And so Theo comes, and then let's see, Maddie hides in a locker, records their conversation. You find out later. Guys, help me out. What happens from there after they leave, and Theo and Julie are gonna go do something. I don't remember.
They're making a plan for where to go, and Julie, smart woman that she is, says, "Are we leaving by the front door or the back door?" And her brother says, "Oh, the back door." So then Maddie's like, "I'll go out the front door." But
Yeah. Oh, that's right. He said to the nightclub, "Oh, I'm here. I'm a plumber." That's his excuse that he used. And then they actually had a plumbing emergency, and so they take him to the kitchen. That's where he runs into Theo. Theo pulls a gun on him. He manages to escape, and then we're just kind of like off and running, right? What else happens after that? Theo chases him into the street, and he gets caught up in the protests and gets beaten by cops and arrested because he runs through a group of cops in riot gear to get away from Theo. Then him and Theo end up in the same car, arrested because they arrest Theo for having a gun. And there's this poor woman sitting in between them, and the mob boss gets his goons to smash into the car and take the both of them. And then Maddie wakes up tied up. And Yannick, I just remembered looking at the notes what his name is. So then he tells Yannick, "Oh yeah, Theo totally did this." And at first he doesn't believe him, but then because Maddie recorded the thing on his phone, then Yannick kills Theo and lets Maddie go and says, "I'll basically just hold on to this screwdriver, this bloody screwdriver with your fingerprints as an insurance policy, and you can just go about your day." But he knows that Julie is supposed to meet Theo at the train station at 6 a.m. And so Maddie decides that he's going to go and try and warn her and stop Yannick and his henchmen from killing her at the station. And he engages in a frantic car chase with the cops, barely makes it there in time to yell out to her so she can get away, and gets shot in the process by the cops. And the movie is kind of like him being wheeled away on a stretcher. And there's like a newscast going on like, "Oh, this young man was shot by the cops," and we don't know where it's gonna go from there. That's kind of like the end of the movie.
Although he does open his eyes at the end, which makes it seem like he's hopefully going to be okay.
Yeah. And we don't know what's going to happen to Yannick either, because he owes the Albanians that money, and so if he doesn't get it back, they're going to come for him. So he might not be a threat, but Maddie's definitely got himself in some legal trouble, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Indeed.
that's the movie. So let's see, Dave, what did you think of Night Call?
What did I think of Night Call? What did I think of? I fucking loved it.
Oh, nice.
Loved every minute of it.
Nice.
Oh my! This is what action movies are supposed to be.
Yes.
Fucking tense and freaky, and like good people caught up in shitty situations trying to make the best of it and becoming resourceful and fucking never losing their humanity, even after poor Maddie. He smashes her in the hand with that hammer because she's trying to be a hard ass. And then he's just like immediately like, "I can't believe I fucking hit her in the hand."
Yeah, he starts bandaging her hand up because she does. It's like, dude, you're sitting there shit talking him, and you're gonna let him take the fall and get murdered for your
Right.
theft. And then she says, "Oh, you're not a tough guy." Like, okay,
Yeah.
come on.
Well, at least I mean, I don't know what exactly about that would make me change my tune if someone hit me with a hammer, but
Yeah.
maybe the thinking is, well, he could have beat me to death with a hammer, but he decided not to.
Mhm.
So maybe I won't let him take the fall for my brother's crime. Of course, that leads to another question is like, well, what the fuck are we going to do? Because she has to know that they're screwed if it's gotten this far. But
Mhm.
I mean, if you sat and this is one of the things that makes it a good action movie. You don't have time to think about any of this shit while it's going on because everything comes at you really, really fast. The moment the movie's over, then you're like, wait a minute, why didn't she just like leave right then? You know, and she could be like, I'm going to Amsterdam. You figure this shit out. You come meet me tomorrow. I mean, that's, but they don't do that. But I love this. It starts immediately. It goes from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, and then it stays at 60
Right.
all the way up to, let's just say, we'll do kilometers an hour. It goes to like, we'll say 120. 120 on the auto route. I don't know what the highway's called in Belgium, but I think the kid is great. I think that I've seen Theo in other stuff. I don't know what his name is, but I've actually seen him. He's like kind of one of those French actors who shows up in American movies sometimes.
Yeah, he does.
Jonas Bloquet.
That's his name. Yep. And of course, the guy who plays Yannick is an actor named Romain Duris, which has been a French, leading man / character actor forever.
He's such a French-looking guy. Too.
He's so French-looking.
He's such a French villain.
Yeah.
To me.
and he does that perfect sort of like he's not menacing per se, but that if you say the wrong thing, he will kill you instantly.
Right. And he has this very twisted way of killing people where he just wraps tape around their entire face until they suffocate to death.
Oh my
so
God.
disturbing.
It is. And then I think he says later on after he kills Theo and, his body's all like wrapped up in the tarp. He's like, yeah, sorry. I'm not a big fan of like blood and guts and bodies and stuff.
Well, yeah. Well, he says, I'm not a big fan of killing people because you always have to get rid of the
Clean
body.
up the bodies.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like, but that's also a good line because it makes more sense why he doesn't instantly kill Maddie at the beginning when they first catch him.
Right.
So there's that. And I also just loved how mostly it's just the frenetic nature of it. And you can see, even though it takes place at night and it's dark, and you can see everything that's going on. Everything is relatively plausible. When that cop comes over, when they're arresting Maddie, and he's like, hey, I think I know that kid. And he goes over and he sticks his face right in Maddie's face. He's like, nah, I don't know him. I'm like, well, this guy's on the fucking payroll. And then, of course, that's when they smash Yannick's guys. I did think in the moment, I did have a moment. I can see Megan thinking like, oh, there's a little more logical gaps than maybe you're giving this movie credit for.
I wasn't thinking that, but okay.
How did the henchman, I know that the cop was like talking to them on to Yannick's guys on the radio, telling them like where exactly they were.
Yeah.
But they must have been like 3 blocks away because they got there
at the ready
immediately, so that was a little bit much, but I really appreciated how visceral this was. I think one of the best moments in the movie is after the brothel scene when Maddie escapes the building. He throws a chair through a window. He runs onto another roof and Theo grabs him and they fall through a window in a ceiling and land in a parking garage.
Yeah.
And then they're just both so fucked up they can barely like move.
Right.
But then the adrenaline kicks in and it's so tense watching him wait for the fucking door to open, the car.
Yeah, I know.
It's unbelievable. And also, I just want to point this out. I didn't even have to look this up. The name of this movie in French is like, it's akin to like The Night Goes On or The Night Drags On or something like that, which is a much better title than Night Call.
Although really is.
Night Call works in its own way, but like, but it also gives you, The Night Goes On gives you a sense of, you know? So there's that too. And I also just love the fact that he goes to the club and he says, "Oh, I'm a plumber. There's a plumbing emergency." And then there is a plumbing emergency.
Yeah. Well, it's in the
amazing.
kitchen. And it's funny too, because he says, "Oh, there's a problem in the bathroom," and they believe it because, of course, there's always problems in like a nightclub bathroom, right? Always overflowing toilets and stuff. And yeah, do you really want to let that linger? Of course, you're going to let the plumber in to handle it, ASAP.
Yeah. And I also just liked how the fist fights in this were super visceral, and it looks like it hurts, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like how even at the first one, when Maddie is fighting the crazy Nazi, it looks like he's kind of got the upper hand, but then he makes the mistake of picking up the glass coffee table, and then the guy just smashes him through it.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. Let's watch them. They'll remake this as an English language movie. It'll be 22 minutes longer. It'll suck. And and like Maddie will have a girlfriend that he's trying to save too, in addition to the sister. Just I'm getting mad about something that hasn't happened.
And I was just about to say
plausible.
I know, right? I was just about to say how exciting it always is for me to see Dave so excited about a movie. Because so often you get so mad at movies, understandably so. And so when you get really excited, it's fun.
Yeah, and I also want to mention, did anybody else think that Theo's number 2, when they go to the brothel, looks like French Jake Lacy? That was
a little bit, yeah.
The whole time I'm watching him, I'm like, Jake Lacy doesn't speak French, does he?
He's not like Dan Stevens. He's not,
right.
Not like dabbling in another, a whole other language in his acting career.
Yeah. So I really, really enjoyed this. I thought it was tense and taut and mercifully short. And the ending, though bittersweet, I don't know how it could have ended any other way. Because Maddie's probably going to go to prison for the rest of his life, but maybe he'll tell this story and there's enough phones that they can pick up the video for that it'll all make sense and be like, all right, well, you did kill someone, but he was just a Nazi, so whatever.
Right. And you did, break a bunch of traffic laws and smash a bunch of shit, but you were trying to warn someone who, were trying to prevent someone from getting killed.
Prevent somebody from being murdered by almost killing 17 other people. But okay, your heart was in the right place. You listened to American pop jazz from the 60s, so everything's fine. Anyway, that's where I come down.
Nice. What about you, Megan?
I liked this for all the reasons, Dave, that you said. I think the pacing is exceptional. I think that's really this film's strength, is that it is such a relentlessly paced movie, which you're absolutely right. That's what you want from an action film. And I also completely agree with you that you want stakes and you want to care about people and you want, complex humanity and complex characters. And I feel like not enough action films do that. Not enough action films have high stakes or stakes you actually care about or characters you care about. To me, I love a great action movie. But if I don't care about the characters, I'm like, well, I don't give a shit who's beating up whom. Like, it does not matter to me, no matter how cool it looks. But if I care, then I'm more invested. And then the action scenes have weight to them emotionally and physically. And I think this does that really, really well. And you're absolutely right. It wastes no time, gets started, gets in, gets out, which is great. I like the usage, or I don't want to say mention because you see it, the visual mention, the inclusion of Black Lives Matter and the police brutality protests. I read a couple snippets of reviews that were criticizing it, like that it has these ideas, but doesn't really go anywhere with them. And I can understand that critique, but I don't agree. I like that it's anchoring it to something bigger, a larger problem, it's contextualizing it into a larger issue. And Maddie is a Black man, so it 100% makes sense that not only are these protests going on, and not only are they both in a weird way helping his plight and his flight, but also kind of hindering it at times. But yeah, it definitely makes sense that, here's this kid who's just kind of caught up in this absurd situation and he can't really, turn to anyone, and then all he's trying to do is help this woman who put him in this situation,
Right.
and he gets shot. Like, so I actually think, having it alongside those protests makes a lot of sense, and I appreciated that. Although it was, of course, it's always very disturbing to see a Black man shot in a film just because of real life violence, and it was very visceral and very disturbing to see it here too, obviously. But I think it all works, and I think this is a really entertaining and engaging, intense film, and I liked it. I didn't love it the way you did, Dave. Not for any particular reason, like that it was, did something wrong, but no, I liked this a lot. I thought this was really, really good.
Cool.
Awesome.
I'm gonna throw one other thing in here real quick.
Yeah.
Maybe Maddie will have his sentence reduced because he is shot unarmed while he's running away, which is another thing that ties back to the BLM.
Yes.
thing.
Well, let's hope in Brussels it's better than in the U.S.
I don't know. The Western Europeans aren't exactly known for their love of, the former.
I know.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Evan, I think you were going to start talking and I interrupted. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. All good. I loved this movie like you did, Dave.
Oh,
I was all in
Good.
on it. It was everything that I wanted it to be.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was everything I hoped and dreamed. That a fun action movie, tense, well paced, taut. The fight scenes, as you mentioned, were really well done. I love Matty as a character. I think he's very resourceful. In every single situation, he thinks of some really smart idea to get out of it. Like when he's literally cornered in the kitchen and Theo's pointing a gun at him, he manages to distract him long enough to throw a fire extinguisher out and create a distraction so he can bolt. He is so smart and so quick on his feet, and I love that about him. And I love what you were saying about the characters retaining their humanity, because they really do. And I think even when Theo gets killed by Yannick, the fact that the movie lingers a lot on his body kind of wrapped up in the tarp, and Maddie looking at it doesn't, Maddie knows that he's safe, but it doesn't feel like an emotional, triumph for him. I think he feels really guilty that Theo is dead and Julie no longer has her brother. And I think that's really fascinating to zone in on, because he very much could be saying, fuck that guy. He tried to get me killed and was willing to kill me so I could take the fall for him. And he still doesn't feel that way ultimately. And he still goes to try and save Julie from Yannick and his goon.
It's funny that I'm sorry. I was just going to say that it's funny that you say that, because even at the very end when Julie gets away, she also doesn't look triumphant because her brother doesn't meet her. She sees, Maddie getting shot. So it's like, so absolutely everyone has, well, not everyone maybe, but a lot of people have empathy in this. And I to your point, I think both of your points, I think it's a great touch. So
yeah,
sorry, please continue.
No, I love that about it. I think that's one of its strengths, in addition to just being well paced, well shot, well choreographed, and just a smart, tense action movie. I loved that when he was in the brothel, Evil Dead was on the TV.
Yes, it was
running around in there.
That was
Looked
amazing.
like Evil Dead 2, I think.
No, it was Evil Dead.
Original? It was original Evil Dead?
Yep.
Yeah. I didn't see enough of it at the moment to be like, to be able to tell, but because I had to watch this on my laptop and was like really annoyed that I was like putting on the screen, so I was not apt to like rewind or do things, because I have this like annoying remote that goes to the laptop, and it's a whole thing. Anyway, yeah, I was a big fan of this movie and loved.
It's great.
Yeah, loved everything it had going on. It was just fun to watch, and it's nice to kind of kick off a new movie year with one like right away that is really good, because often January is such a low point for movies where all these films get dumped that are not good, and you're kind of like slogging through for a couple of months so you start getting the stuff that you really enjoy, unless you're hitting the festival circuit and hitting up like Sundance or South by Southwest, where you're obviously going to find better movies.
Yeah, I would like to jump in with 2 points real quick.
Sure, of course.
One, if my uncle is listening, good killing.
Yes, this movie does have good killing.
Two, this movie goes out of its way to give even minor characters complete arcs. The guy who runs the
Yes.
shop where Maddie gets his sandwiches, you see him sell the sandwiches. You see him make the decision not to press Maddie when he's asking him questions about his girlfriend. And then when he comes back around, when the whole night is over and Maddie goes to get his shitty van that's been fucked up, the guy sees him and is like, hey, did everything work out? Did you find your girlfriend? And he's like, yep, found her. And he's like, okay, have a good night. And then he goes back into the store and I'm like, that guy in like a minute and a half has a complete story in this movie. That's amazing. So I love that.
Yeah. I also really love the scene where he's trapped in the bathroom and he uses his lock picking skills to undo the lock. He uses the furry handcuff to help pick the lock, and then he realizes it's smarter to just hide under the sink. So when Theo busts in, he thinks that he's already escaped, and then he kind of gets the drop on him. There's following that chase is, I think, my favorite shot in the movie, where it's Theo is looking up through the stairwell and Maddie is looking down, and you kind of see them out of the corner of the like gap in the stairwell, and they have that like exchange, and then Theo starts shooting. I just thought it was a really brilliant shot.
That was a good shot.
Reminded me that happens in The Untouchables. I'm sure it happens in other movies, but that's remember. I don't know if either of you have seen it recently, but Frank Nitti shoots down, but it's down instead of up. He shoots down the stairwell at Elliot Ness. Very similar angles. Yeah,
I did somewhat recently an episode on binge movies talking about Brian De Palma films, and yes, talked all about Untouchables, and love that movie. Great shot. So thanks for mentioning that, Dave. I love that.
Sure.
Movie. So good.
Yeah. No, I saw that immediately. I'm like, Untouchables.
Yes.
So, I mean, maybe it's something else too, but that's what I know it from.
I mean, then they end up in the train station later, and now all I can think of is the baby carriage going down the stairs.
Yeah. Oh, and another great action scene when Maddie is on the bicycle going down all those flights of stairs. That was so well done.
I'm glad you reminded us of that, because that was another amazing scene when he goes down all the stairs in the subway station and he rides the bike all the way to the bottom of the stairwell, like jumps off the bike when it crashes into the wall, and then makes it in the train in the nick of time for it to leave.
Yep. Awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's we've enjoyed a movie when we're like now going back to individual scenes that we really enjoy.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I'm not sure I have too much more to say about it.
No, I mean, I should probably shut my yap because I could say more, but I know we got to move on.
I was gonna say, I will say one scene that it's not as good visually maybe as a lot of the scenes that you guys are talking about, but for some reason, this one I really enjoyed when Theo is chasing Maddie, and Maddie is in the glass.
The elevator?
The
elevator, yes.
Oh, hell yeah.
I really liked that. And then
That was
Theo's like
super
trying
tense.
to shoot at him. Yeah.
Well, it was also really smart how Theo, I was just like, what is he jumping onto? And then he's jumping onto vans that are like a lower, so he can keep running down this hill where all these, it's really well done.
I just yelled parkour at the screen when he started doing that.
Parkour.
Oh, Michael Scott.
Yeah, one of my favorite Office intros.
Oh, it's so good.
Helms just jumps
So
into the
good.
box.
There's so many good Office intros, and that one is a great one. But nothing will rival the fire drill.
Yeah, today. What does he say? Today, fire is going to save lives or something like that.
Yes. Oh my God. Anyway. Oh, it's the greatest. It's the greatest.
Yep. Well, that's a good note, I think, to end on for that conversation. We've come back to The Office. So let's move on to our last movie of this episode. We're going to be talking about Back in Action, which is a Netflix action comedy. It's written and directed by Seth Gordon and co-written by Brendan O'Brien, and it stars Jamie Foxx and Cameron Diaz. And let's read the good old IMDb plot summary. Former CIA spies Emily and Matt are pulled back into espionage after their secret identities are exposed. Wow, that's thin. So Emily Emily and Matt are spies. They are working on a mission where they are stealing some type of MacGuffin that's like a, drive, or it's like one of those like Fast and Furious MacGuffins where it's like, oh, this is like a drive that will give us control of all of this city's infrastructure so that we can, open and close the dam to the Thames and turn the power off to the city and this and that. So they end up stealing it from this, I don't even remember, some type of like Eastern European gangster guy. And then they get into a plane, and then in the middle, in midair, they're attacked by these henchmen, and there's this crazy fight that breaks out, and the plane is crashing, and dudes are flying out of the plane. It's like open, it's in the mountains, and they end up barely surviving. Like there's one parachute left, and she takes it, and he's gonna leave because earlier on the plane she said that she is pregnant, and he's like, let's give up our lives as spies and let's have this kid, and I'm all in. And he's like, protect that baby, and she's like, fuck that, I'll just grab you with my legs and we'll we'll both survive this. And then they kind of realize, well, everyone probably thinks we're dead now, and the whatever the fuck it's called, the key or whatever, is missing, so it'll all be fine. We'll just go off the grid, we'll have kids, and just leave this life. And so it's like fast forward, I think it's like 15 years later, they've got 2 kids. Their older kid is like 14, and I forget how old the younger kid is, like let's say 10. And they're living the suburban life. He's like the soccer coach, and she's like selling things on Etsy, and they're like, kids think they're huge nerds, but there's also like weird shit about them. I'm like, Dad, were you talking to the AC guy in Russian? How do you know Russian? He's like, yeah, we learned it I learned some in the Peace Corps, when your mom and I did the Peace Corps. And so then the daughter sneaks off to like a club, and these guys attack them, so they beat the shit out of them, and it ends up on camera. And so then Kyle Chandler, who's their old handler, tracks them down. He gets shot by some guys, and then they're off and running, being chased. They pick up the kids from school. They fly to England, where Jamie Foxx hid the key on the farm that Glenn Close, Cameron Diaz's mother, has. And then they go there, and they're pursued by the British authorities. And Andrew Scott is the Baron, who's like the MI6 guy. What else happens? Their kids, then you find out Kyle Chandler is actually alive, and he's been chasing them because he's mad that they failed their mission, and he lost everything, his wife and dog and car and house and all that jazz. So he kidnaps their kids, and then they have to rescue their kids and get the key back from him, and there's this crazy chase on the Thames. And yeah, I forget what else. It becomes very like predictable. I mean, it's pretty much predictable the entire time, but it becomes very much like standard spy, kidnap, rescue mission kind of movie at a certain point.
And don't forget, it ends with the possibility for a sequel.
Yeah, what the fuck is this? Movie's got some fucking balls on it, like trying to be like, are you kidding me? Like you're setting up for a sequel? Like, dude, slow your fucking roll here.
Yeah.
Like, how do you think this is going to be popular enough to make a sequel? Seriously. Yeah. So like at the end, they're back to, the soccer match, and they win the championship, and Glenn Close and her much, much younger boyfriend are there celebrating with them. And then like the daughter is going to go off and hang out with her friends. And then, Glenn Close and her young boyfriend are like, yeah, we'll watch the kids. You guys go have fun. And then that's when Andrew Scott shows up, and he's like, yeah, now we need to go get your dad, Cameron Diaz. And we don't know who the dad is. So
yeah, Jamie Foxx says, "What, your dad?" And she's like, "Oh, did I ever tell you about my dad?" And that's kind of where it ends.
Mm-hmm.
With your sequel ringings.
Yeah. Anyway, I did not think this was going to be amazing by any means, but I thought to myself, okay, we got Cameron Diaz, who's coming out of retirement. You know, she's been away for a while. She's jumping in with this. We got Jamie Foxx. They're both fun people. They can be in silly, fun, dumb kind of movies together. Sorry, they can be separately in those kinds of movies. So maybe they'll be fun together. I think that's kind of all what we were thinking going into this. But yeah, what did you think, Megan?
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. I mean, so I will say that I feel like more on the recent side, I have appreciated Cameron Diaz more. And maybe it's just my burgeoning annual rewatch of The Holiday, which I love and adore.
It's a great movie.
It's so great.
Yeah.
And she's such a delight in it. And so it's kind of made me reevaluate some of her other work. And because I know obviously she was huge for a long time. But I was never really a fan. And so it's made me reevaluate her work. And I'm like, yeah, I think she does have charisma and comedic chops. And I think she is good. And so I was kind of excited to see her because she's come out of retirement. And it seems like she's having a lot of fun here. And so I really I really like her. I was pleasantly surprised that I liked her chemistry with Jamie Foxx. And I've never been a huge fan of his either, but I liked him here. I thought he was very engaging and I liked the two of them together. So, and I love Kyle Chandler. Love, love, love. Coach Taylor, I will watch in anything and everything. I love seeing Coach Taylor. Love Kyle Chandler. I have loved him ever since the show Homecoming. Such a great show decades ago. It was great. And he was great. And he's always great. And I was surprised to see, oh my God, I totally spaced on his name. Baron.
Andrew Scott.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know why I spaced on Andrew Scott. Andrew Scott is such an amazing actor and so spectacular. And I was like, what is he doing here? Good for him. He's probably having some fun too. And for me, that's about it. So, because this is just so sadly predictable. And like you said, I wasn't expecting something amazing. I was expecting something, kind of lighthearted and fun. I did not know this was going to be so heavy on their children. And I did not know, because I thought it was just spies coming out of retirement.
Right. Same. So did I.
Yeah. And I was really excited about that. And then when we bring the kids in and the whole suburban life and, our parents aren't cool. I'm sorry, but your parents have fucking banging bodies. You really think they're that uncool? Like, I know everybody thinks their parents are uncool, but like, come on. I'm sorry. It just, something doesn't compute here. So.
The movie is so lazy. It even tries to like write that away with Glenn Close saying like, I hated my mother and you hated me and now your daughter hates you and everyone can suck a dick or whatever she says. I don't know.
And I'm just like, no, I don't believe you. And like you can hate, like, sure, you go through teen period where you resent or hate your parents, but like, I don't know, it just didn't work. It didn't work. So I would have preferred this if it didn't fixate so heavily on the kids, or the kids weren't so heavily involved, or the kids hadn't gotten kidnapped. Like, it just feels such a trope. It feels so predictable. Yeah. So, but I loved Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx. I thought they were fun and great. I just would have liked to have seen them in a different movie or a spy movie, but a different spy movie.
Yeah, I'd be down for seeing them in a spy movie where they're just spies. They're just doing their thing. Like, wait, let's see, Matt and Emily when they're doing their missions. Let's just let's just flash back to 15 years ago and see what they were doing while they were doing their missions. What their dynamic was.
Give me Alias, but with them. I want to see that.
Okay, yeah. I could be on board with that.
Which actually already was a show with Gugu Mbatha-Raw and Boris Kodjoe about like 15 years ago, where it was like a married couple who were spies. And that was a cute show. So anyway, but that's what I want to see.
Yeah, I hear you. What about you, Dave?
Yeah, it kind of blew. I mean, I don't love Jamie Foxx or Cameron Diaz either, but they're both so effortlessly charming in this movie.
Yes.
And they really sell the whole towing the line between being spies and parents. The one of the things that actually stuck out to me as like a good gag, but also something I can actually see a parent doing, is when they get to Glenn Close's house, Cameron Diaz's estranged mom, and she shoots that pheasant. And then, they have the conversation, and then she tells her grandson, all right, you pick up the pheasant, we'll all go in the house. And so he picks up the pheasant, they start walking toward the house, and Cameron Diaz just turns around and goes, drop the pheasant.
Yeah, I have to interrupt with a PSA here. Do not pick up dead birds. Anyone, do not pick up dead birds. Bird flu is very much a thing. You do not want bird flu.
That's true also. And I thought it was weird. Like, some of the action scenes were really well done, and some of them just sucked. Like, the whole thing at the beginning with the plane just sucks. It's shitty. The CGI is shitty. The action is shitty. It's predictable. Well, everything in this movie is predictable. But then you have the car chase after Kyle Chandler fakes them out or whatever in the beginning, and that was pretty good. Mm-hmm. And then you have the shootout at the gas station, and that was good too.
Yeah.
But then a bunch of the stuff at the end in the boats just was kind of stupid and just, I think the problem with this is, you got big names. And like, this is, you can't take chances on a movie like this. Cameron Diaz it's her first movie in 10 years, 11 years. I don't know.
Yep.
She used to do things where she took chances. Anyway, so she comes back, and you can't have a fucking huge budget movie have an edge. You can't alienate the fucking people who pay for this on Netflix. So it just becomes this sort of rote, uninteresting, predictable, bland, as we have all said, bland movie. Which is a bummer, because some of the family gags, especially from Jamie Foxx, really land. Like the way he explains away the Russian, and
good point,
and things like that. And he's always been a comedian, but his comic timing in this is like flawless. It's really, I'm kind of amazed in a screenplay this deadly that he's as good as he is. In fact, all I can think is that he read it and he's like, this is not great, but I will give it 100% because it needs it, So, and Cameron Diaz is great too. Like you, Megan, I don't really think about her all that much, but she's really good in this. Yeah. And it's a good thing the two of them are good and so good together, because everything else about this is kind of crap. Even poor Andrew Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, his dialogue is terrible, and
he's got that lingering crush on her. Just and let's not forget that even after they go underground, they use their real names.
Did they? I was not. Oh, you mean Matt and Emily? They didn't have like different first names. Yeah, that's weird.
It's like they're sitting in the fucking like whatever suburbs they're in, and it's like, "Hi, Matt, and I'm Emily." So
yeah. Yeah, I don't even think I put that together. Yeah.
Well, it's like, do you remember Sneakers with Robert Redford?
I love Sneakers.
His name is Martin Bryce, and then he changes his name after he gets in trouble to Martin Bishop. Yeah, no one will figure that out. Genius.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree with you both. This movie is corny as hell. It's so corny, and the reason any of it works is Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx both having chemistry, although I personally think that their action chemistry is stronger than their romantic chemistry. I think that they fight really well together and they have like great choreography and they play off each other well in the action scenes, but I think better than I buy them as a couple. I think that the movie really relies on a lot of rapid fire banter, especially for the first, third of the movie, to try and keep the pace going and try to maybe distract you from so many plot holes that are in this movie and things that just straight up don't make sense. I also could have done a movie that didn't involve kids at all, but if it involved kids, not them being kidnapped, it'd be more fun to see them like work together as a spy family. Like, okay, guess what? Now you're in on the secret, and now we can work together to figure this shit out. That'd be way more fun.
And now it's
Spy Kids?
Yeah.
Like the movie Spy Kids?
Yeah, totally. I'm on board with that. I think that would be way more fun.
You know what? If you can do it well, why not?
Yes. I also liked that even with the children they're the audience conduit, just saying this whole thing is ridiculous the entire time and it doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't understand how this could even be possible. There's so many jokes like that where they're just like, none of this makes sense. Like, I agree. In the audience, this doesn't make any sense. And so I think that that's kind of a great thing that this movie has, is the the children as the winking audience conduit, just saying, okay, this shit is bonkers and there's so many plot holes and it doesn't add up, but let's acknowledge that because we're just trying to make this corny action movie with these two stars that we really just want to see together. Like, that's why we're showing up here. And Glenn Close doing her thing where, you know, she's all about the look. She's got some very distinct look to her character and just really hamming it up and chewing the scenery. You know what I mean? Like, that seems to be Glenn Close's trait. Like, I'm going to have a very like stylized look to my character and I'm just going to lean into it and I'm going to act with my look first.
Yeah, I feel like somebody needs to do a deep dive on this part of Glenn Close's career because it is wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the choices, the acting choices and visual choices and vocal choices are just there's something
totally
else.
Just absolutely bonkers. I love the idea of having Kyle Chandler play the villain. I just wish he got to do more. He's such a bland villain with like no decent motivations. He doesn't really have any fun things that he says or does. Like, he could be so much more evil, and I would love that from Kyle Chandler. I love him to be so much more evil. Yeah,
he's so good.
Yeah,
he's underutilized here.
Very much underutilized to just play this like bland, one-dimensional. Oh, I got this thing and I'm going to sell it for money. That's all I care about is making money.
Yeah.
It's no Hans Gruber, I'll tell you that.
But who is?
Yes, that's true.
Megan, you mentioned Homefront, but my Kyle Chandler introduction was Early Edition. So
I loved Early Edition too.
I loved the fact that a cat dropped off that newspaper every day.
Yes.
So
that came after Homefront, but yes.
It did indeed.
I loved it.
Yeah,
yes.
No, I've never seen Homefront. I've heard of it, but yeah.
It was such a wild soap opera. It was like a World War II soap opera anyway.
Okay.
But yeah, no, Early Edition is great. Yeah, no. So good. I'm glad you mentioned it because it's so good. Since we're speaking of other projects, this isn't a Kyle Chandler project, although I do love all the Kyle Chandler projects. Jamie Foxx, I realized another movie that I love him in is, oh my God, I totally spaced on the name. Collateral.
Yeah.
I know you don't like it that much, Dave, but I do. I love him in that. I think he's really good in it.
Yeah. That's when I start to fall out of love with Michael Mann, but you know, that's all right. I don't love all Michael. You don't have to love all Michael Mann if you.
No,
you don't.
No, definitely
that's
not.
true. Anyway, kind of bringing it back in for a landing. I think the one final thing I wanted to mention is that I actually laughed out loud during the scene where they kind of give each other the look when they're in their bedroom, like, "Oh, you both need that sweet release, right?" You know, they're looking at each other like, "Oh, we just need to fuck about it." And then, you know, you hear them like grunting, and then it cuts back to them, and she's, you know, punching him, and they're doing kind of like sparring in the bedroom, and the kids hear them, you know, making noise, and they're like, "Ugh, gross." That actually made me laugh.
Yeah. Oh, something else made me laugh. Like the last joke at the end before Andrew Scott finds them is, you know, Glenn Close is going to take the kids for the night, and what are we going to do? She's like, "No kids for the night. Let's go to bed." And he's like, "Yeah, good idea." And I was like, "Yep, I hear that."
Very realistic.
Yep.
Yeah, see, I think that's what's interesting. I was thinking about what you said, Evan, about their chemistry as a romantic couple and how you bought it more as like their physical fighting. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great point because I think their physicality with each other is so good. But I think it's those little moments and how they sell it that for me made me believe they were a couple.
The corny jokes or the kind of like looks that they would trade, stuff like that.
Yeah, funny enough, I didn't find it that corny. At least with the two of them. And again, I think it's because they're selling it so well. But yes, I think that the things are corny. I think you're right. It just didn't feel it with them because they're doing such a good job selling it.
They were
you are
elevating the material.
Very much so. They're working overtime elevating that material.
Yep. They're working as hard as they had to work to make that car flip as many times as it did after it crashed from that Mentos and Coke bomb that he dropped on them.
That was nuts.
That was actually kind of funny. I appreciated how fast they got the cap on that bottle.
Yep. All right. Well, let's wrap up here. So let's bring it back to the beginning. So Megan, would you recommend the Wolfman
Ah.
or Wolfman rather?
Yes, this one's just Wolfman. No, but yeah, no, but I think you can wait to see it if you see it. But no, I would not recommend it, sadly, even though there's good things here.
Yeah. Well, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty safe to say we would all recommend Night Call enthusiastically.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep. And then Back in Action. How are we feeling about Back in Action?
Yeah, send it back to the toilet.
Oh man. Oh boy. Yeah. I mean, like, I wasn't miserable watching this movie. It wasn't like horrendous. It's fine.
It's fine. Exactly.
It's not like don't fucking see it ever. It's just like there's better ways to see your time. There's better ways to spend your time than watching this movie.
Yes. There's better movies with both of them in it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
But like if this as I said this in another episode where this is the trajectory Netflix wants, where they want to do movies where you can do other things while you're watching the movie.
mhm.
You know, like if you're folding laundry or cooking dinner, like sure, throw it on. Why not?
Yeah, sure. It's a background movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't think too hard about it though or analyze it. That's not one of those.
Right.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of Spoiler Piece Theater. Want to thank our editor, Otto Clamor. Otto, thank you for making us sound so great week after week.
Thank you, Otto.
Thanks, Otto.
You can find us anywhere you get podcasts, but you can also go to our website, which is spoilerpiece.com. We're on social media. We're Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook. We're at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, and we're over on Blue Sky also.
Yes,
Yep.
and Threads.
And Threads. We're in all the other places. And if you want to get in touch with us and you don't want to message us on there, you can send us an email, spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can give us a call.
At 862-21-PEACE.
You can leave us a voicemail. You can tell us your thoughts on Wolfman, Back in Action, or Night Call if you happen to check them out. Or you can tell us about other movies you've seen recently or ask us questions. Pretty much anything. We're down. We'd love to hear from you. So give us a call, shoot us a text. And if you like the show, please consider rating and reviewing us. You can go to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece and they'll take you to your platform of choice. And if you really, really like the show, please consider joining our Patreon. As I mentioned at the top of this week's episode, we talked about the horror movie The Front Room from last year. And so that was a spicy conversation. And then if you join for $5 a month, you get those bonus episodes. And then you can also vote in polls. We have a monthly poll coming up soon. So look out for that if you're a patron. And yeah, my name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living, and co-host of the Etsy Pictures podcast. And you can follow me on social media as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
My name is Megan Kearns. I write for Edge Media Network. I'm a co-host of the Slashers podcast. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and a member of Gallica. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Opinion S World or on Instagram and Letterboxd at The Opinion S.
And my name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and you can follow me on Instagram, Letterboxd, Blue Sky, and Threads as Dave Sees Movies.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.